Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining. We're going to go ahead and get started on today's session, getting to know NexentaStor 5. Before we jump into the session itself, a few quick housekeeping items. We've got the lines muted today just to avoid background noise and allow everything to come through nice and clear through our presentation. We do want to make this an extremely interactive session, so please do use the question section. We'll be monitoring those throughout the entire morning here and building your questions into the discussion. Actually two other quick items. We will and are recording this session. And after the webinar today, we will be delivering within the next 24 hours the recording and the slides. So that way, if you need to miss any portions of it, you want to share it with others, or just want these slides for reference, we will provide those to you in the next 24 hours. So with that, again, thank you everybody for joining. Let's jump right into the session. My name is Don Lopes. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Channels, and we're joined by Mike Lection, Field Chief Technology Officer. Mike, say good morning to everyone.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Don.
One quick thing, Mike, I was looking back at the webinars. We do these rather often. And I think this is an exciting one that we haven't done for quite some time. We do a number of great webinars. You've driven with some of our top partners, Supermicro, Lenovo, Dell, HGST. Some of our great customers have come on board, but we haven't had a session to really get into our software solutions. So I'm excited to have this opportunity with our attendees here and the folks going to be listening to this on the recording to really get into the software itself. And I think one thing I also want to mention is I'm excited to do this session with you because I think you bring a nice, unique perspective to our session where folks who don't know you, you spend a lot of time in the field talking to customers, but then in a lot of cases get right that feedback from the customer right to our product teams. And I know a lot of the features we're going to talk about today, you're going to share more about the first-hand experiences we went through. So I'm excited, and hopefully this will be a great session for our attendees and the folks listening in.
Yeah, definitely looking forward to it. I think it's nice to be able to show some of that feedback we get from the field right back into the product. So it'll be nice to be able to give people that haven't seen it a little bit of heads up on what we've been doing recently and some of the new feature set.
Wonderful, great. So folks, with that, here's our agenda. We're going to do a quick just overview of the overall portfolio of Nexenta. We're going to do a quick review of the NexentaStor solution for folks that may not be familiar with this technology and really using this webinar as a first chance to learn more about it. We're going to then get into the specifics of NexentaStor 5 and Fusion 1, two great technologies that have really seen great adoption over the last I'd say 12, 14 months, the latest versions. And then we're going to do a live demo. I think it's going to be an exciting opportunity for you guys to all to see firsthand the technology. Mike will walk you through that demo here. And then a bit of a tease at the end, a new product highlight, sort of special attraction for folks who attended that we're going to share with you some advancements in the technology, which we'll be announcing later this month. But wanted to give you a quick preview, and then we will hopefully have a great Q&A session. So we're going to probably get through the slides, say in about 30 minutes, and then have the demo in there and really try to make this interactive discussion. So feel free to pepper your questions in throughout the session, but if you'd like to hold them to the end, that's also fair. So with that, real briefly, for folks that may not be familiar with Nexenta or just looking to learn more about the entire portfolio, we're going to spend a lot of today's session talking about two solutions. But when you look at the overall portfolio, it's really built on two different technologies. One being the NexentaStor scale-up unified file and block technology, which we're going to really drill down into today. And then one that's a bit newer, but we're on our 2.0 version, Nexenta Edge. It's our scale-out multi-service technology that offers file, block, and object protocols. And then we're gonna share about a new platform that's really gonna enable our customers, prospects, and partners who are looking at building hybrid environments to leverage a technology we're gonna share more about at the end, Nexenta Cloud. And then we're gonna talk about NexentaFusion, really being that orchestration and framework to allow you to manage your software-defined storage from Nexenta. So real quick, just wanted to give you a quick highlight of the portfolio. Again, today's session will focus on NexentaStor and NexentaFusion and touch on cloud, while look forward to future sessions on Edge to allow you to really learn more about that technology. So when we look at NexentaStor, we really feel here at Nexenta we've got a differentiated solution, and it's really built off of these 9 components here, right? And we feel the combination of these pieces and items within our software solution really allows us to set ourselves apart, and it really allows us to deliver cutting-edge technologies to a lot of our customers out there that have really displaced a number of the legacy vendors out there. So it's a file block technology that we really have worked hard as a 5th generation product to build the feature set that really you expect in that enterprise class solution. Being software only, I think is a key piece, and we'll talk a little about the flexibility in the different portfolio of hardware technologies we support here in a little bit. But one of the nice things that we offer with our technology is it's a perpetual license, right? So you buy this software capacity license once, and you own that license and capacity throughout the lifetime of your organization, which really gives you the ability to over time scale this into other workloads. But I also think it allows you to, as you look at taking advantage of future technologies down the road on the hardware side, be able to upgrade or even upgrade components within your solution to be able to really provide an optimized architecture for your data center. We feel that by providing really the software platform optimized against different hardware technologies, we're able to really support all different tiers of storage, and we'll go a bit into that here in a second. We've really, and Mike's going to show in the demo and through some of the slides, our modern UI and how we've really, with NexentaFusion, simplified the experience for our customers, both from the analytics side, but from your day in, day out tasks. And it's really all built off a next generation REST API centralized management framework, which we believe gives us, the technology to support, the technology as today, but really develop integration into other technologies and other platforms down the road. So when we look at the different workloads and configurations which Nexenta can support, the nice thing being a software platform is we're able to support in your organization everything from all flash, hybrid, and spinning disk configurations. And we've got customers across our 1.8 exabytes, 6,000 deployments that are running NexentaStor in all these different types of configurations, right? And we've got people running applications, databases on all flash configurations. We've got a number of customers running virtual environments, virtual workloads in a private cloud, maybe through VMware or through OpenStack environments. A large piece of our customer base is just using this for general file share, right? So this could be everything from mail support to just really your general files within your business. And one area that a lot of our customers get started with and really find this is a great way to break into a software-defined solution from Nexenta is in this backup or archive type environment. We spend a lot of time really working close with our third-party backup vendors to really provide the certification needs there and allow you to build an architecture that solves problems, and in a lot of cases lowers your overall cost structure for your backup or archive. We talked a little bit about different hardware partnerships, and I think this is something that is something that Nexenta does a really great job and really differentiates us apart from a lot of the different software-defined vendors out there, but also legacy storage vendors. And I think you'd be surprised the amount of effort and resources and headcount we have here at Nexenta that really invest a lot of R&D and a lot of time with our ecosystem partners on the hardware side to really map and understand their strategies, their roadmaps, so that we can allow our customers to take advantage of really the cutting edge innovation that's happening extremely rapidly within our hardware partners. And so, we have these discussions with, partners like Supermicro, Lenovo, Dell, HGST, Seagate, and what we really try to do is allow our customers to have reference architectures or certified solutions, or even storage appliances that allow you to know that, between Nexenta and our partnerships, we have validated these solutions, tested these solutions, and really are optimized for targeted workloads. And so we have these configurations in again, all flash, hybrid, and spinning disk configurations that allow you to know that we've done the work, and these were really optimized for your environment and ready to go. So I think if you're looking to learn more, one great place to explore is our hardware compatibility list. There it really drills into the latest version of NexentaStor 5, all the testing qualification across all the different ecosystem partners in which we work with. And really, as we get into the NexentaStor solution itself, I touched on it's a file block technology, right? So it's a scale-up file block supporting NFS, SMB, and CIFS. On the block side, fiber channel and iSCSI. And again, we've invested and really matured our technology to really provide you the core feature set that you expect, right? So you expect the snapshots, you expect clones, you expect replication in our technology, and these are things in which we bring to our customers in this enterprise class solution. The traditional configuration, as you can kind of see there in that image on the right, is a two server, two controller for high availability, where the NexentaStor software runs. And then we add storage enclosures, either being all flash, hybrid, or spinning disk, to really scale your workload needs and your capacity needs. Mike, I thought this might be a great point for you to jump in and talk about, there's some new features for folks who've maybe seen this slide over time that you can go into a little bit more in depth.
Yeah, I think on this one, it really shows, as we're saying, that the product really gives you what you would expect for any true enterprise storage solution today. There's some things that are essentially table stakes on it. You expect to be able to have snapshots, you expect clones, you expect to have RAID protection for when you have hardware failures. As much as everyone would love it to never happen, we do have hardware failures. So being able to do things like have extra RAID protection, I think we can call out something like being able to have a triple drive of parity with our N+3 on it. That's really important for some of those really large use cases, the real large drives. So when you're looking at a 10 terabyte drive, no matter who's trying to rebuild a drive, when you have a failure, 10 terabytes can take some time to rebuild. There is some time frame in there, so being able to have multiple drives, so if you have multiple failures, is important. But with that, there's definitely a few features that I think we can kind of dig into a little bit more. There's things like encryption, there's things like our quality of service that are kind of a little more specific to NexentaStor and kind of differentiate what we can do as a product base. There are things that are, again, between the snapshots and the capacity growth, but things like LDAP integration, I think is important to note, and AD integration. So if you're looking at an SMB use case, it's something that is available for the SMB users, while still having that same integrated solution if you still have NFS and you have Linux and Mac users as well. So let's go into that first feature we'll kind of highlight there, Don. So I think that's going to be the QoS side of things. So for people who aren't real familiar with a quality of service and a way to kind of minimize the load for other users, get rid of some of the noisy tenants. VMware has done a good job when you're looking at a VMware use case of providing a way to provide a quality of service to eliminate the noisy neighbor in specific VMs. But what it can't do is if I've got tenants that are using multiple different pools, kind of stop them from impacting each other with my storage backend. So what our QoS does is takes an NFS level data store. It can be any NFS mount, but we specifically kind of build this around VMware. That's the biggest use case we've seen for it, and does a limit to stop people from using too much of the IO and the bandwidth that's available from that cluster. So if I have an NFS level data store that I'm presenting out, I can tell it to give it a max of 50, 100, 200 megs a second if I know that I have X amount of bandwidth available from that pool. So if I have an all flash pool, which is really where this has probably the biggest impact for guys like service providers or even some of the large enterprises that maybe you have different departments. Picture a different department and they're running, say it's towards the end of the month, you have a new marketing campaign coming out and the marketing team is working on some new videos that are really, they're doing some workload against the disk and they're really doing a lot of copy back and forth. Maybe they're doing some rendering directly on the disk, but it's the 31st of the month and accounting needs to be able to cut payroll so that everyone gets paid. You don't want those two impacting. While you want marketing to keep going, I'm pretty sure everyone agrees that they want to make sure the payroll gets cut. So you could set those different limits for each of those departments. Same goes for different customers then from the service provider side on those different tenants to kind of eliminate that contention between different groups, different tenants. This allows you to do that on an NFS level at different file systems. So really aggregating that performance and making sure that you're getting the right usage of the storage and not having that conflict and slowdown. So that's one piece of it. I think if we go on to the next feature to highlight, I think we'll talk about some of the replication side of things. Now, replication is something that a lot of customers just expect nowadays when you're looking at a traditional storage solution. The nice thing is they're pretty much configurable to do anything you want, whether it's from a primary to a secondary site, whether it's doing kind of a branch and tree solution to allow different groups to go out. But really, when you're doing a replication, a lot of times it comes into play where maybe I have an entire solution. Maybe I have a database, a web server, and even some files that are on the back end of that. Well, if I only replicate the database, it will stop being consistent with my web interface. If I just do the web, I won't have them together. So we have things like consistency groups to allow you to make sure that multiple volumes get replicated at the same time. So when you're trying to do that recovery in a DR scenario or just failing over to a different data center, it will allow you to do that both for the entire solution, and you don't have to worry about that conflict between your web services and your database on the back end. What we're also doing with this is allowing you to do things like have a high availability solution. Don kind of mentioned that the traditional build is a couple solid head nodes with JBOD behind it. Well, you don't always need that for your secondary site. It is DR. It's a lot of times it's just an insurance policy. At that point, I might only want a single head node. That doesn't change on how we're going to do our replication. Our replication is still integrated into it to give you the same flexibility. Speaking of replication, on that secondary side, if you want to do things like test that DR, or you want to do some development work against maybe a database, you can ramp up the secondary side as a read-only snapshot of that data, so you're not impacting your replication, but you're able to still work against that data on the secondary side. Now, we can do this either. It is all right now in an asynchronous style. So either you do your standard schedule replication, and this is all included with the core product. So The enterprise license includes that scheduled replication, going from one side to the other, about a 15-minute replication and higher. Now, we do have one more option that we can add as a plugin to it that allows you to get that RPO down to closer to a minute. It's really a continuous async that as long as there is bandwidth and the change rate fits, we will keep sending it as fast as we possibly can to get you that near synchronous and near zero RPO time. So really no impact on your initial side, but getting that data as quickly as possible without having the extra cost of a synchronous setup, which often can really jack up the price of your bandwidth and everything else. This gets you as close as you can and can oftentimes fit the need of those tier one issues and those tier one products and solutions you have in your environment without having to worry about it. So now if we move on. The next one is looking at encryption. And I know a lot of government agencies, a lot of large enterprises are being more and more asked that with all the breaches that have happened, how do I make sure that my data is more and more secure? So we have implemented the ability to utilize some of the self-encrypting drives. And I think this is something that really sets software-defined storage apart from your traditional storage as well. The ability to look at the latest technology, implement it quickly and into the solution set. So having self-encrypting drives, often if you're looking at a traditional array, it might take you an extra year, 2 years for the vendor to say, oh, we're going to support this. This is our solution. You have to buy it with self-encrypting drives. With software defined, you're simply doing an upgrade to the software to include the access for the self-encrypting drives, and you put the new drives into your choice of the JBODs to make sure, obviously, it fits along with the hardware compatibility and testing and such, but you can choose those drives now. Now, we do this utilizing a third-party key manager. Right now, we have things like KeySecure that are the third-party manager we've tested on it, but then you can still have those drives. So if you want to move the drives between data centers, you want to move the drive, if a drive gets stolen, you have a breach, that drive is completely encrypted and it requires your keys to handle that. So we handle the authentication, the registration of the devices, but then pass it along to make sure that that key management is handled from a company that really focuses on security and key management. Now that you've kind of got some of the baseline on the features, you kind of, okay, that's great, but we talked about how this makes things simpler. And we're trying to make software defined easier to use and easier to deploy, easier to manage. And the way we're doing that is being able to deploy it in multiple different options. So whether you're deploying it in that traditional bare metal with a single head node or two head nodes, and then managing it through our NexentaFusion interface, which is what I'll show you in the demo in a little bit, or whether you're an all VMware shop and you want to use the vCenter plugin. Now, you can still have that same traditional storage in the back end, or maybe you need to run as simply as you just need file services, and you can run as a virtual storage appliance and still be able to manage it through that vCenter plugin. So all of these are based on that API that Don was speaking of. Talked about in that the kind of the 9 items that we really try to differentiate ourselves with. So on this, the NexentaStor interface is really built on that. So the Fusion interface as well as vCenter. So going on to the next one, Don, really gives you a lot of capability. So using that API, building what we built into a vCenter plugin, and our VMware integration, we've spent years and years working with VMware very closely on it. For those of you who might have seen some of our integration with either Horizon in the past or vSAN, all of those pieces we've really worked a lot and kind of grown into this vCenter plugin we have today. Now the vCenter plugin is a web interface plugin, so you don't have to worry about the traditional FAT client. I know a lot of us like that still, but the web interface has gotten better, and it's really where some of the integration points are. Adding in things like vVols that are getting asked for a lot of times to make storage simpler for that VMware admin. Also being able to have things like VAI for better snapshot capability and a lot more freedom in your VMware environment. This will also allow you to do things like manage different arrays, give you analytics of what's going on with your storage in the VMware environment. So you see kind of the dials on the interface, that's telling us kind of what the workload is. How much am I hammering my storage? How's my configuration set? Is it balanced? Am I having any challenges? Is anything really pushing the limits of my bandwidth, of my throughput, things like that? All those analytics all come from that API that we spoke of earlier. Also, again, back to kind of that multi-tenant environment. We talked about QoS a little bit. If you were looking at multi-tenant, you could now deploy out things like multiple VSAs and give the end user the appearance of having their own management infrastructure that they are managing through vCenter, and see that they have their own storage. While in reality, as the core customer, the core presentation of the infrastructure, you can manage that storage in the back end as you need, but then allow very specific control and not have to do all the work as the IT admin. Things like Site Recovery Manager are going to be added to that for those users who are doing that. Obviously, it does work with things like Veeam and all the other different virtualization backup products as well already. Now, not everybody is obviously a VMware environment. We have quite a few that are running on OpenStack, and we've been working with OpenStack for quite a while. We actually first upstreamed our Cinder driver in 2012. So now 5, pushing 6 years of experience with OpenStack. We do have the traditional Cinder driver for NFS as well as iSCSI to be able to present out that same storage to the VMs in OpenStack environment. Still gives you the same feature set and functionality on the back end, whether it's the replication with our high performance replication with HPR, or whether it's just sharing out the volumes and the mount points for you to be able to access that storage and present VMs on top of it. Now, on top of Cinder, we also added in support for Manila for NFS. So for those of you who aren't too familiar with that, the easiest way I've seen that equate is kind of the Dropbox version of OpenStack to give you file services to go along with that, not just VMs. And all of that's available directly from OpenStack to see the drivers and all the list of features on what we can do on that. However, as we go to the next slide, there's a good spot for you to really look for all of that. And we keep all of our OpenStack drivers, all of the support, all of the documentation for it as versions have gone on our GitHub site. So you simply go to nexenta.github.io and you can get both the Cinder and the Manila drivers on it. Also, I think here it's good to point out that we've also worked a good bit for those of you who are moving into the container space. So if you're looking at a Docker container and you want to have the volume plugins so you can directly access storage and have persistent storage for your Docker containers. While containers are great in the portability and moving things around, having the ability to have persistent storage is still needed in many environments as you're building them. Just because you have a web interface that works great to have that web server as a container, if it has that database backend, the database, if it's a traditional SQL or any of that kind of orientation database, you still need to have that persistent storage. And you can get that utilizing our volume plugins for NFS or iSCSI. Also, as we've built more Docker integration, things like our Fusion interface can be deployed as a Docker container. Our Nexenta Edge solution is very much built around some of the Docker integration. So if you're looking at containers, Nexenta's really spent a lot of time to get that integration and really have a good solid story around containers so we can work with you. Now, I talked a lot about the API and have kind of mentioned it on and off that both our NexentaFusion's built on it, our vCenter plugins built in. It comes directly off of the NexentaStor interface. It is a self-documenting API. I often will mention that I was a computer science major, but I was not a big fan of programming. Never been a big programmer myself. However, this is so easy that it's very easy to write scripts against it, get the information from it, whether you were trying to just get information out of your solution, whether it's knowing what the workload is, whether it's knowing your volumes, what your shares are, or maybe your hardware. but also to be able to script against it if you want to do things like DevOps management, where you're creating new mount points on the fly, depending on how you're scripting things. You get all that information here. It does obviously have login to it so that it's secure and you can manage it that way, but everything is built off of this. And as you're looking for things to script, instead of having to go at a very low level, simply look at the interface, do a quick search, tell you what the command is, test it out, see what you want to do, and you can easily return that right into a script, right into whatever programming you're doing against the interface as well. We do utilize this for all of our solutions I mentioned as well. So going on to the next one, we'll see that this multi-system dashboard, and I'm going to show this a little more in the demo, so I'm not going to go too in-depth on NexentaFusion, but all of the information that we're pulling is based on that API. If it's not in our API, it's not going to be in NexentaFusion, not going to be in the vCenter plugin, so you know that you're getting the right data. Now, Fusion does allow you to do things like single interface management for your production site, maybe multiple sites around the country, around the globe, but as well as seeing what they can do, whether it's an HA cluster, whether it's a single node, is it healthy, how much have you configured, things like that. It really is the way to manage all your pools, your file systems. You can do it via CLI if you want, but it's so much simpler and that nice, easy interface. Speaking of, if we go to the next one, you'll see some of the hardware configurations even. So if you were looking at, we don't want you to just be able to build out a pool configuration, but we want you to see, have you had drives fail? What is the layout of it? Maybe you had a drive fail, you need to blink that light so you can replace it. It's very easy to come in, show the indicators, blink a light, and walk into your data center and flip a drive in and out. So next. Now, this is giving you, not only can you see what that drive is, but literally the numbers on it. So we'll show you, here's what this JBOD should look like. And we said it was drive 0. Here you go. This is exactly where to look. Maybe it's a power supply failure, whatever it happens to be. We'll try to give you as much information as possible to really see what's going on with your hardware, even though it is a software-defined solution. Now, once I've gotten my pools created, I see my hardware, it doesn't do any good if I don't know what's going on. And here's one of the things that we really improved and really just kind of took a lot of that feedback back from the field, that people want to see more along what's going on with my storage. I want to see better analytics. I want to see when there are spikes. I want to see who's using the most. So this is a quick glimpse of what a dashboard of our analytics will look like. Now, the dashboard you would see across all of your appliances, but you can create your own dashboards as well. So maybe you only want a dashboard that only shows your NFS workloads, show me my top ones, and show me everything, whether it's in IO, whether it's in bandwidth, whether it's in the latency for each one, and who the top offenders are. So if I need to know who's really taking up a lot of my bandwidth, maybe I need to set a new QoS policy. I can see that very quickly with this analytics screen. This also helps with troubleshooting, as it'll go back up to 2 years is kept on the appliance to be able to go back and trend what's going on as you're growing capacity. If you had that spike, maybe you had an issue a week ago you need to go back and look at, simply bring up your analytics screen, tell it to show me the last month, and then zoom in as you need to see what happened at that time. Maybe you can quickly see, okay, I had one volume that all of a sudden my capacity jumped. Well, I see that because my alpha pool went up, and alpha A3, somebody just added an extra terabyte file into that I didn't know was going to get added. So I can control what's going on and see that trending. Very customizable, allows you to change the size, the color, the look, the feel, whatever you want to put this in your NOC, or just to use it day in and day out to really manage your storage. Now, I mentioned the vCenter plugin. Again, all based off of the API. Wanted to give you a little better kind of look of some of this analytics. I mentioned it will tell you whether it's your cache hit or your CPU usage, what the load is on the initial screen, but you can dive in and see just as much on some of those analytics from the vCenter plugin as you can on Fusion. A lot of the same capability, same feature set, same functionality here to be able to give you management within your VMware environment if you are a full VMware shop and that's where you want to management. There's no reason that you need to step out of it to go manage things through our interface. If you've already got pools created, you want to create more volumes, you want to create more mount points, add them into new ESX hosts and see what the load is, you can do that all through the vCenter plugin. Really built not just for a single node, it can be a single appliance, but also for that multi-tenant and of course that virtual NAS environment where you have multiple different VSAs. Maybe you're looking at the vVol or VAI capability as well. So we're going to jump over to do a quick live demo here for you. And our best bet here is we're going to hope that this comes across and I don't end up with an Apple type setting where I'm sitting on stage and I don't get to actually show it. So if Don can make me presenter here real quick, and we'll switch over. Yep, I got it. Just need go to webinar to let me click on things. And I'll go ahead and show my Chrome interface. So you guys now should be able to see, should be looking at some analytics here. So just confirm, Don, you see my analytics?
Looks good, Mike, thanks.
Great. So what I've done is this is in my kind of lab environment. So load is kind of spotty. I've got things get built and deleted all the time. You'll see some alerts. Again, you'll see this initial dashboard. So I can see that I've got some NAS IO going, my cache hit, I'm reporting over here. I've only got a few shares that are really showing things, but really kind of what the day in, day out management looks like for an end user. Really, you've probably already created that initial pool. So I've got a pool here already. This pool, if I look at the status of it, I can see that it's online, kind of how much space I have on it, and I'll be able to see what disk I'm using. I'm using 8 disks, have about 8 terabytes here. I know that I've got just a few different, one RAID Z1 set here, and then kind of whatever properties I preset on it. Now, once I've got that pool created, I'm probably not going to mess with the pool too much. What I'm really going to use are things like file systems. Now, I'll probably be creating more mount points. Now, I created one earlier today, but I'll go ahead and just tell it to create a new file system. So when I add in a new file system here, it's going to ask me some pretty basic questions to start off. Now, I'll give it a name on it. So we'll call this webinar demo. I can tell it if I know that I'm using SQL or I'm using VMware, I can change the record size. So we'll change this one, make it 64K block size, record size on it. Do I need to save some space? A lot of this is already passed down. If you're using things like you need to have case sensitivity for a specific NF or Linux type workload, all of the little question marks will give you the kind of a better understanding for the first time using it on what you need to add. On this, we'll create a pretty basic file system. We'll just call this, like I said, we called it webinar demo. So it just takes a second to go create that webinar demo file system, let it refresh, and it's sitting there. Now, I can't do anything with it yet because I haven't shared it out, but I'll go ahead and share that via NFS. Now, I've got 3 options when I'm sharing via NFS. I can either set it auto open for specifically set for virtualization type workloads. So my OpenStack, my VMware workloads. If it's just for traditional file share, that Linux file share I'm trying to put out there, or if I want to set my own ACLs, I can do that as well. On this one, I'll say we're going to do this for VMware and virtualization. Go ahead and save that. And it'll take a sec for the NFS to check here, but there you go. Now I'm sharing that via NFS. Maybe I want to share it also for my Windows users. So I can come in and tell it that's that share name. That's what you would use to access it via Windows. I say save. And now it'll be shared both NFS as well as SMB, and users will be able to access it. Now, users can access it, that's great, but now I always have to worry, well, what happens to it? It's just sitting there. I don't have any data protection. So I want to make sure that I create both either an ad hoc snapshot. So I can do that right now. I'll just call this ad hoc 1. Go and create that first snapshot of it. And this is taking a snapshot, obviously, of blank data. We don't have anything going, but it'll be a snapshot that I can revert to in the future if I wanted to. Now it's already created. If I need to roll back, or I can clone that and make that its own read-write file system as well. Now, I don't want to have to do that manually every time. So that's where the protection services come in. So here, I'm going to call this, we'll do an hourly snapshot of this. Now, I can either do snapshots here, or if I'm doing replication, it's the same interface. Now, I don't have this one set up for replication right now, so I'll just keep it with snapshots. Same scheduling mechanism. I'll tell it I want to do it hourly, run every hour. And since it's 43 after now, we'll tell it we want to do it at 45 minutes after the hour. And I'm going to keep 2 copies locally. If you're doing replication, you can keep a different number locally as you want to keep on your secondary site. So, and you can have multiple schedules per service. So maybe you want to have it replicate hourly or take a snapshot hourly, but I want to replicate daily, keep 1 copy local just in case, but keep it 7 days on the secondary side. Now just go ahead and create that hourly snap. It's now going to go in the background, create that hourly snapshot schedule for you, so you know that every hour you can do it. Now, the nice thing about our snapshots too, I mentioned we shared this via SMB. Now, for a Windows shop, a user that has this share mounted can now right-click on that share and look at previous versions, and they will see the snapshots you've taken as an admin, so they can do self-service restore of files. So you no longer have to do all the work yourself on that. Now, I've also got things like that continuous replication I mentioned. I don't have it configured on this system right now, but you set that on your specific file system I want to go. Now, I want to look and make sure that data protection is really being utilized. I've got just a little bit going on here right now, but let's go ahead and look at, we'll say the service type, and I'll say all my scheduled snapshots. So just show my snapshots here, and I can sort and see what's going on to see what I have set. So I have on my demo pool over here, every 10th minute I was taking some snapshots, and I can see them there. Now, this is actually a high availability cluster, and I can tell that because I've got the 2 little boxes up here. So if it wasn't an HA cluster, I'd only see 1. If I want to do maintenance on one of my head nodes, I see them both here. I have everything. I would simply come over here and tell it to move over to the second node. If it was a complete failover, I can do it here as well and fail over. And it just gives my VIP information, all my information pretty simply here. Now, one of the things I mentioned real early on was looking at the components view. So components is what's going to show us what's going on with each head node, CPU, memory, what our HBAs look like, what we're looking at for NICs. So if I want to look at this one, I can tell that this is running with Xeon 12-core processors, hyper-threaded with 2.2 gigahertz frequency on these. Now, more importantly, I think it's going down and looking at what I've got for my drives. So this one happens to be running on one of our AMAX solutions. So I can see it's got 2 of the SSDs in it already, as well as I've got quite a few spinning disks. And I can see both things like revision of them. So if we know that there's possibly a recall on a specific revision, you'll be able to see that. Or maybe I want to be able to blink a drive on that. I show the indicators on it, and I can go in and blink what drive is having any issues specifically on that solution. Click the little light, and that guy will start blinking. And if you were standing in the data center, you would see that. Let me turn that off so no one thinks that I'm having issues with one of my drives. I can also then see if there's anything, how it's connected on our entire system. I mentioned on the analytics side of things, the dashboard was what you saw initially, but the analytics is very easy to configure new dashboards on it. So I gave the example of NFS earlier. create a new canvas here. Now, I simply add in whatever pieces I want to look at. So I want to look at my NFS share performance. And for this one, I'll say look at that new share we just created and look at the IOPS on it. But I don't just want to look at the IOPS. Let me clone that. And on this one, I'll tell this one to be able to look at my latency. Now I can either look at that real time or if I want to see in the last hour. Obviously, I'm not going to have a lot of data since we just created that one. But now, as soon as I close this, that's saved for me to come back to. So I can still look at my dashboard or jump over and look at my NFS. So I think that gives you a nice quick overview of what this will look like as you're kind of digging into the environment. So Don, let me pass that back to you here so we can give them a little bit heads up on some stuff coming up.
Good stuff, Mike. Let me know when you can see my my screen.
Yeah, there you go.
Cool. So why don't you do the honors and share a little bit about the solution that we're going to be releasing later this quarter.
So I think this one is really exciting for people that are looking at having a hybrid cloud solution. I know there's a lot of push into the public cloud environment, but in all reality, things still oftentimes have to stay on-prem for people. So what we've developed is a solution to go on Amazon AWS, will be the release we're putting out there. Both that same NexentaFusion interface I just walked through in the demo, running out in the cloud. So if you want to run it as an AWS instance for NexentaFusion, not taking up any load on your environment, or just to have cloud management, you can do that out in AWS, managing both on-prem NexentaStor appliances across your environment, or our new Nexenta Cloud for AWS. It's going to be sitting out in AWS, the ability to run a NexentaStor solution in AWS for either replication using that HPR we talked about, to be able to give you replication for long-term retention out in AWS. Maybe it's your critical data. You want to make sure it's a copy outside of your data center, but also the ability to do things like test dev workloads and really quickly ramp up smaller NexentaStor environments with a single management with that NexentaFusion interface. Still managing it there, but sitting out in AWS. So like Don said, this is coming towards the end of the quarter, and we're really excited to see how people take this and what they're looking to do with it. So to kind of get more information, I know, about what we're doing, Don, I'll let you do the honors.
Thanks, Mike, and appreciate all that great information. I know, folks, we went through. I think initially I said 30 minutes. As we got into it, I realized we've got so much information here that we need to get you caught up on. And apologize, we went through it rather quick, but hopefully that gave you some baseline information to learn more, right? And ask some of those questions. So here are really 4 great ways to go do that. You can visit our products page. It gives a number of resources, our reference architectures, data sheets, all that kind of good stuff. Another great link is the second one there. That gets really more into the specific documentation, hardware compatibility list, provides our product guides, all of that kind of in-depth product information. The demo, right? So Mike went through it. I think that was record time there, less than 10 minutes. A lot more we can show you, a lot more, I'm sure, questions you have. Please do reach out to our sales organization to get a demo and allow us to answer all your questions. But then also remember, we have a free trial, right? So it's a 45-day enterprise trial of NexentaStor 5 with Fusion. Just go to the link there, and you can download that today and get started. So with that, I will pause a second, and if there's any questions, please let us know. Mike, first question came in. Is it possible to get an NFR license for HA configuration, for example?
So our trial license actually does include, we can get access to that to test out HA as well. So on that 90-day trial, if you want to try HA, we'd be happy to make sure we get that configured. If you've got a specific build, make sure you look at those reference architectures that Don mentioned. but we can definitely get that tested for you. It's no problem at all.
Mike, any additional thoughts? Anything you want to dive a little bit deeper to?
The thing that I would want to probably leave people with, I think, is one of the things that has always been a challenge with SDS is that it looks complicated, it feels complicated, but with the addition of some of the reference architectures, some of the partnerships that we have with multiple different companies, and the Lenovo's, the Dells, the Supermicros, that we have these partnerships. It's very easy now to deploy a software-defined solution that works for your enterprise, and being able to manage that and scale up to where you need to get. And oftentimes there's a lot of buzz around the scale out, but scale up for many environments really works when you can get into the multiple petabyte range nowadays. So I think people just need to kind of realize, take a look. We'd love to hear from you and go from there.
Yeah, that's a great point, Mike. We've got a number of webinars on the Lenovo appliance, the DX8200N. Go check those out. We did one less than a month ago with our friends at Supermicro around the Supermicro total storage solution for Nexenta. Two appliances that are out there that if you're looking for software defined, but appreciate and really want it all wrapped up again in an appliance. You can get those two solutions from those vendors, from their partners, skewed up in their systems and all supported back through those organizations. So it's a great way to get started. But then again, we've got the reference architectures that give you the flexibility and some cool stuff we'll be talking about later here in the future. Mike, we got another question, couple questions in here. Can I make a cluster configuration inside a virtual environment running NexentaStor in 2 VMs with concurrent access to JBODs?
So we do have a solution for that. We actually have built that out for multiple different solutions and customers on it, whether it is direct access to the JBOD or whether you're using VMDK to do it. So yes, you can do the cluster environment on that. If you have one, definitely reach out to sales on that. We actually have a real nice document on how to do that specifically, and we can get that sent over.
Great. Mike, another question came in. Are storage snapshot backup with Veeam backup replication supported?
We do have support with Veeam, yes. Well, we're certified with Veeam as a backup solution. Obviously, with Veeam releasing their version 10 coming up when it finally releases sometime this month, next month, they've got some changes on that. They're actually releasing a new API, which we're working with them also to make sure that we're fully integrated with their API and our API as well. But we have been supported with Veeam for quite a while. So yeah, the backups are supported there.
Great. All right, folks. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time here today. As mentioned, please do reach out to us if you've got more questions or want to learn more. And then keep your eyes open in your inboxes in the next 24 hours. We'll be following back up with the recording, the links for some of the resources we previously mentioned, and also the slide deck. Thank you again, Mike, for joining me here today. Appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone who attended earlier in their mornings, late in their evenings, and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.